The way I define co-living is with 3 words. So co-living is shared housing, yes, but for 3 reasons, 3 C's: community, affordability, and convenience.
Welcome to Deal Flow with me, Michael Poulio, the go-to destination for private equity and real estate professionals, including institutional investors, sponsors, and market experts. Each week, I talk with industry insiders on everything real estate, capital, and proptech. Welcome to Deal Flow with me, Michael Poulio, the go-to destination for high-level private equity and real estate professionals, including institutional investors and market experts. I talk with industry professionals week on everything real estate. Today, we're excited to have Clara Arroyave, founder of Co-Living Cashflow, with us. Clara has made a significant strides in revolutionizing the co-living and residential real estate sectors, offering innovative solutions for investors, landlords, and agents through her platform. At Co-Living Cashflow, she champions investment strategies that maximize returns from co-living properties, catering to the needs of modern urban dwellers. Clara, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Michael, great to meet you. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to hear too. So I'm excited today about learning about co-living and what you're doing at Co-Living, your co-living company. But first, if you could just give us a little bit about your background, kind of how you started and what you're focused on today in your own words.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, where do I start? I've been in Massachusetts for about 12 years or so, and I moved here for business school. And when I moved here for business school, I entered the early technology space and how real estate could help, and in technology can we solve problems that real estate had at the time, that it still has. And many things have not changed during that time. I have 3 startups before, all in real estate. The first one, helping people move here without a credit score or social security. How do you enter into format apartments? So I learned a lot about the demand of housing in the Boston area. In the second one, I learned about the supply and why the people that have the supply really don't care about the demand. It just is incredible. And in the third one, it was my first co-living company, placed me back in 2016. I partnered with a couple of students from my business school, and in 1 January, we leased a couple of apartments and subleased by the room in our co-living model. And we sold out in a week and keep growing from there to become the largest co-living company in Boston until 2018. Then we did a M&A with a competitor during COVID, 2020. I did a couple of years of venture capital and investment banking in Latin America. And I returned to focus heavily in the co-living space, because during that time, the co-living space in the United States has grown incredibly. And what I see is that there is not a marketplace that really focus in the asset class per se as an investment and as a potential as an investment. And given the fact that there are many shapes that you can do co-living, there is not like a real guidance, so it's very dispersed. So I took the task to become their first marketplace and center for information for co-living, from mom and pop investors to institutional investors in the country.
Okay. Great. Well, for people who don't know what co-living is, why don't we start there? Tell us a little about, I know you kind of alluded to it with the business model, the arbitrage, but just for the listeners, what is co-living? Why is it attractive to the landlord or the investor? And then why is it attractive to the resident? And then what?
Okay, sure. The way I define co-living is with 3 words. So co-living is shared housing, yes, but for 3 reasons, 3 C's: community, affordability, and convenience. Right. So why affordability? Because when you lease only a room, when you only have part of the rent, a third of the rent to begin with, you're not responsible for the whole of it. So it's very convenient for people that cannot, where what you make, either you're a student or someone that makes minimum wage, or you come from a country that your income is not the same as what the rent on the area that you are is a access to enter opportunity in the area that you're working on. So it's also community, because then you're not alone. So many people want to just be with other people, and there are plenty of communities that is dedicated just for, let's say, co-living for women over 50 in Europe or things like that. So it's also the community part, the avoiding the loneliness epidemic that we have, and convenience, because you not only share the house, but also you share chores, resources, and are part of the community. So it's a win-win. It is really good for investors, and very simple reasons. A, you are away from you're away from long-term vacancies to begin with. If you have one unit, let's say a regular apartment or a regular house, and you lease, let's say by the room, you have 4 rooms, 5 rooms, any based on your zip code where you are. If you have 3 or 4 rooms leased and you have one vacant, you're not dealing with the whole vacancy place. You have only a partial vacant. So no matter what, you will always keep making money. And usually the average is between 80% cash on cash and 20% cash flow ongoing in an ongoing basis. And I have a partners that make from 45% to 50% net operating income as compared as a single asset. So it depends how you optimize it. You can really double and even triple your revenue in a small multifamily or even a large multifamily.
Okay. Yeah, no, so it sounds like as an investor, it sounds the interesting part is that you, some of the downsides of single family are that you one unit, one lease, you lose a tenant, and then you have no cash flow, right? When you're thinking
Correct.
about co-living, you can split that single house into 3, 4, 5 individual payers, and so even
Correct.
if you lose one tenant, you still at 80% or 60% or whatever, and so you're still being able to break even on your expenses while you lease up that bedroom, which is also maybe easier to fill because it's less expensive and you're only looking for a single person versus maybe like a few people who have to all agree to do things.
Correct.
And it also sounds like there's quite a bit of improvement in returns. I think it'd be good if you could maybe speak to, you're doing this primarily in Boston. Is that correct?
No. I'm doing nationwide.
You're doing this nationwide. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, before we start recording.
Come on, man. Everyone. I'm based in Boston. Here's where I started.
Okay.
Here's what I learned. Mm-hmm. In my company, we have at the time about $45 million in assets under management. Many of the people I was working with, they just grew operations. I have one client that has more than 400 rooms like that. So that would be like 50 to 60 millions in assets by only his group. But when I've been in the industry for so long, I have international investors that want to be in California, that want to be in New York, that want to be in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So now I have deals going all over.
Okay, very good. Well, then, that being said, since you're nationwide and you're not just in Boston, so tell me where you're seeing this model be most attractive. Is it agnostic everywhere? Everyone wants to do this, or do you find certain areas around the country where people are more interested or willing to do this sort of a model?
The demand is thanks to the work that Atticus LeBlanc and Pashley and the platform have been doing, putting attention into what I can call workforce housing. So everybody that makes minimum wage, especially when it's a delta between the minimum wage and what the average of a median house is in like half of the country. Actually, if you make $7 an hour, you need 2 full-time or 3 part-time jobs, 2 full-time jobs to pay for an average 1-bedroom apartment in many places. So you don't qualify, period. So that's when he came up with the solution for single-family homes. It's been growing steadily. That platform right now has about 15,000 units, and he wants to have 1 million units by 2030. So a lot of small investors or Airbnb investors are just shifting towards a model that doesn't have either the regulatory hurdles, neither the tax complications that short-term rentals have versus co-living. So there is one big market growing that is all over for what I can call workforce housing, but there are also some other markets. So you go to New York, you go to Boston, you go to Boston, you go to San Francisco, all that California area, a lot of young professionals, not necessarily workforce housing. The median price for a studio is $3,000 to $3,500. So what do? You say no, thank you, and then you go pair with a couple of 2-3 friends or to find a co-living solution. But many of the companies that either do arbitrage, they own, they lease. There are many models that companies that are growing this nationwide and just do lease. So there are also many companies. One of my clients is also a big arbitrage company here in Boston and New York, and they just do arbitrage models. There are also owner-operators models. There are many ways that the industry go, and the ones that I was mentioning before, they just build ground-up construction, and this company, 79 apartments, 289 rooms. The reason they started doing this, and they were very clear from the beginning, is co-living from ground-up construction makes 50 basis points more than multifamily. So they have the law in Alston that I was mentioning before. They say, okay, either we do hospitality, we do multifamily, and we do co-living, and they review all the numbers. And even for ground-up construction, 50 basis points in 79 apartments is very sexy. So they went for it. And now they're winning awards for the job they made.
Yeah. So there was a few things that you mentioned there. I'm gonna go into. So it sounds like where this model is most attractive is that, where there's more demand, is places where you've got a big discrepancy between the average worker or the minimum wage worker and the average income and then the average rent. And so affordability basically is what's driving the need, right? This is a requirement because nobody can afford to pay $3,000 for a studio, basically, unless you're a software engineer or you're a lawyer.
Correct.
And if you want to live in a studio and you're a lawyer with 10 years experience, you probably don't want to live in a studio. You probably need to have a different type of housing arrangement. So the people who really need to live or want to live in studios, or where that living makes sense, is a younger person, or probably in your case, like you're saying, it's several younger people, or just several people generally who are coming together that want the things that you said, the 3 C's: the community, the affordability, et cetera. And so I think that's really powerful, because that's something that makes housing accessible in large primary markets around the United States.
Correct.
That I think is really great. And then you talked about arbitrage. You talked about I think for the listeners who don't know really about the different ways you can do this, where you can buy the house and you can split it up and you can have different leases or whatever. Tell us about arbitrage, because I think that's a relatively accessible way for investors to start doing this if they maybe don't have a lot of money to get started, and they you want to buy a house in Boston. It's very expensive, big down payments, and interest rates are really high. So tell us a little about rental arbitrage and how that model works within the co-living space.
Sure, absolutely, and that's the way my company started back in 2016 or so. Arbitrage. If you are ever been into, and at the beginning I used, hey, what is co-living? Oh, okay. The best way to explain it is, are you familiar with WeWork or any other co-working space? Okay. What is that? Yes, they lease the building, right? They lease the property for a long period of time, 3 years to 5 years at a X price, right? And then they subdivide it in little parts, same as WeWork or any other co-working space, but in residential. And then for a premium, they put the furniture, the decoration, the utilities, all the services included, where the client or the end user, the only thing to do is plug and play. Meaning, let's say I have a just for the argument's sake, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, and I have a $3,000 price that I got it for. But then what? Then I lease every room for $1,400. So the delta is about $1,000 per month per unit. But the magic is when you do 4 or more. You that 4 rooms or more, or a building with 12 rooms or 26 or whatever amount, you really see those rents to, even if you lower the price, you see those rents double and triple versus what the market price can be.
Yeah. And
is that clear?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Making sure I'm explaining myself correctly.
So it's just so basically you obviously you kind of secure the long-term lease, so you know what you're going to pay as the investor. Yeah. And then you go out and you find people who want to rent by the room, and then you place those people into the property. And obviously there's going to be, if you're doing it right and you're doing the analysis right, and you're and you're keeping it full, then you're going to see a difference between the short-term rates that you're charging or the room rates that you're charging versus what you're paying. So, and then you're making that spread. And so, correct, like you said, very similar to WeWork or Regus or any co-working solution that someone may see in their local market. And so, yes,
in that case, Michael, just to add, the OPEX or the OPEX is very low, because you just put furniture once, decoration once, photography once. Those are your costs, and add cleaning maybe once or twice a month. So you know what you're very clear on your monthly cost, because you just put furniture once, and then whatever amount of cleaning and repair. But knowing your location, you know how much you can charge, how close to transportation or area you can charge. And because you're offering the convenience and the flexibility that we're discussing before, one of the things is convenience. People or clients, doesn't matter really the ages. Okay, the room is ready. I don't have to pay first, last security broker fee 4 months upfront. I have the room with everything that I need. I need it for 9 months, and I want to pay $1,400, $1,500. By all means, have at it. Here's my check. And then when you optimize and use technology to grow and maximize operations, you really have a very nice cash flowing machine, and you have a very nice healthy business.
And also, one of the things that you mentioned was about Airbnb and how you're seeing people who are frustrated with the regulations and the various things that the hoops they have to jump through, and the fact that Airbnb is much more like a hospitality business as well.
Pretty much.
Right. And so it's like, do you really want to be running a hotel, or do you want to be a landlord? Right. And so people moving away from the Airbnb model, but they usually, when you do Airbnb, you purchased maybe pretty expensive because you expected to do Airbnb. So you need to figure out a way to still make money. So it sounds like moving from Airbnb to co-living can be a great solution for people who want to maintain a really good yield, but don't want to be in the hospitality business. Is that where you were getting?
That's one way, yes. Not being into hospitality business, but also you are still a little bit of hospitality because you're the host of your tenants anyway. But you're not superated all to things like that. Oh, my water glass is half full. If you don't give me back full, then I'm gonna put a bad review. They are pending of the reviews, pending on arbitrage, pending on the scams, all sorts of things that can be very wary for Airbnb hosts. Whereas the average length of a stay almost in all co-living operations are like 8 months. Mm-hmm. Even for workforce housing, for the student housing, for millennial housing, any way you want to call it, the average is about 8 months. Mm-hmm. They can start as short as 30 days. In cities like Boston, it's 3 months to 4 months to 6 months to the whole year. But also I have clients that have leases for 18 months. So it depends on the area that you are, but yeah, you have way less frictions with your client because you don't have to think about regulatory. If the regulation changes the area that you are, the neighbors are wary or whatever it is. No, it's a regular house with regular leases, and you are a landlord that either you do it yourself or you hire maintenance, and and cash flow the same.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So the you also talked about how, from an investor perspective, that new development property that was in Boston, that they had looked at hotel, co-living, and then just multifamily, and that the co-living solution led to a higher yield on cost, like a higher stabilized yield, 50 basis points. And just for people who have no idea what that means, that's probably a 10% increase in the value of the property relative to each other. Just because of what, if you had if normally you might be trying to get on a new development to maybe a 6 cap, and you add 50 basis to that, you're up 8-9% in value versus where you would be on a multifamily. And most investors are worried about your equity return. So 10% of value could be, a 30% increase in the equity, depending on how much, debt to equity you have. So that's a big deal, even though 50 basis points maybe doesn't sound so much. But in the world of real estate, when you're dealing with big numbers and big dollars, 50 basis points is all the difference in the world. So that's very impressive. I'm sure that's going to lead to a lot more building of co-living in markets around the country.
I will sincerely hope so. Big cities like New York, Chicago, LA, already LA has some. Boston has 2. New York has a few going on. San Francisco didn't have. I was going back to, because all the increase with AI jobs back in San Francisco. So now all the real estate is going back up in that area. So there are many ways to do co-living, from luxury buildings to people that make minimum wage. Mm-hmm. The unit economics of the country are not going to change significantly in the next years or so. So minimum wage is going to remain stable, but at the same time, salaries in certain areas that remain stable. But that's not equal of the the pricing of housing, right? Mm-hmm. So the lack of balance is still there. So the only thing I can forecast is that co-living is going to become even more important as an asset class in the years to come, 5 to 10 years, is going to be as popular as a short-term rental. Instead of you, Michael, asking me, oh, what is that co-living? No, everybody will know what co-living is.
Sure.
So that's why I'm here, to be first in educating investors, owners, and facilitate not only education, but the most transactions possible.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about, we're going to get into like a little bit of operations. So, you have a relatively, what the difference between when I have obviously a tenant in a property, I will have a 1-year lease. That tenant might stay for several years, or, certainly not less than a year. When you're dealing with rooms, like you said, you have a shorter stay. So you're turning rooms over more frequently. And so tell us a little bit about how you underwrite, how do people think about the risk of underwriting tenants? They're coming in and out. You also have, multiple tenants that don't know each other, potentially in the property. How do you deal with that from a safety, security perspective? To tell us a little bit about that. Just
Sure.
stigmas maybe.
Very, very good questions, Michael. Very valid question. So number one, how do you underwrite? So I would say it depends. It depends on the location. The way that you underwrite in Massachusetts or New York is very different than you underwrite, let's say, in Atlanta or in a small state or in Iowa, per se. Completely different, because then you need to know who you need to do back is who your client is, who you're doing this for, right? If I'm doing a building in Alston or in Cambridge, I know my clients are going to be MIT, Harvard students, that they might not know each other, but technology is your friend. I use technology for everything from background checks to applications to rent payment to whatever you name it, technology, and they get to know each other beforehand and do a little bit of communication even. But if you do, let's say, a unit that you want to put in Passplit for workforce housing, yes, they don't know each other, but the price of the house, or the price of the house, or the average rent, or the working mortgage is, when you divide that, let's say, and the house doesn't have a 3-room, it has 3 rooms, but what happens when you put 6? So you do a little bit of additions in the house to make 6 rooms. And you look at the price of what is minimum wage in my area, how much I can lease per week. In past is per week, I think it's the average, about $200 per week. So about $800 a month. So $800 times 6 rooms, let's say, so $4,600 versus the regular rent in a single family home in that area will say like $4,200 or $2,400. So you know that you really are like doubling once fully occupied, you're doubling, even more than doubling the rental revenue from a single family home in the middle, what I call the middle states, Michigan, Wisconsin, anywhere you do that in smaller areas. When you do a single family, when you do multifamily, it's about the same. So who is my client? Who can be in here? So that's the first step when you choose a property for co-living. What is the location? Who is the nearest employer? How much do those employees make? Who is the nearest school? What is the tuition there? Who is the I'm doing co-living because I'm next to an airport. So who is my target client to know how much to charge? And then you start from the beginning. So that's the way I usually do it.
Yeah. And you get the tenants comfortable by using technology. They get to know each other potentially before they see each other or things like that.
So, and to address one question that I forgot about, when you asked me about the tenant length of a stay, is your property. So you decide how long you want your clients to stay. I have clients here here and also in New York that really enforce the 12-month lease. Hey, I have a full-time job. I'm not going anywhere, and the rooms are 1,000 or 1,200, and they have clients there because it's so convenient and so well located, and it's only 1,200. I spent 3-4 years in the same room, and this guy is making 9% cap. In a multifamily, you're like, what, 9% cap? Okay, fantastic. So you, as owner, you decide how long to the leases, right? How long to put the leases for. If you are using a third-party platform, in this case, let's say Passplit for convenience, or any other platform, Co-Living.com, any of those, you know that the minimum is 30 days, but then you charge a price that where the cleaning costs and all the costs are covered even for a short-term lease, correct? And that you have enough spread to cover your mortgage and your payments, and you have like double, 2x and 3x on top of that. So you know where your minimum is. And
the platforms you mentioned, Padsplit and Co-Living, those are platforms the technology platforms that help landlords execute on this, right? Without them, because there's a lot of extra stuff you have to do, right? There's more turnover. You've got to partition all the. I assume there's, every door has to have some different locks, digital or otherwise. So you've got to deal with security. You've got to deal with the payments, everything, and then you've got to split up the leases. And so these platforms are also what's enabling this trend to grow, right? To make
correct. Everything is streamlined, but soon it's not going to be a trend. Soon it's going to be here to stay. Yeah. So many of them is all technology enhanced. The same way Airbnb was, let's say, 10 years ago, 8 years ago. Once you decide to put a property there, underwrite it, okay, this is going to work. You go through the steps, photography, what is the need, how much the rooms are going to be like, and then you have all the manuals to, do a step by step.
And do you see this? So I could see this working not just in single family, but in multifamily, right? So I presume that, you could, maybe you don't want to have the whole property for co-living, but you could, if you had 10 building property, you could have one of your buildings for by the room and appeal to a certain demographic that, that you want to attract. Do you see that happening with your clients or in the marketplace to cater to
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Depends on the city. Again, larger cities are co-living works in density place. So San Francisco is all density, large SROs, SRO operations. Same for LA. New York and Boston the same, Chicago the same. It's all multifamilies because there is no time or space to do single family. So it's all what in Massachusetts is called triple deckers. I don't know if you remember what a triple decker is like. So triple deckers, and in New York is also very large, very large operations. But in the small ones, yes, it works. It depends how you want to do it. And I see very small co-living operations in the small multifamilies. I was checking one in New Orleans that is coming to the market soon. And something very interesting that I'm keeping my eye on is optimizing underutilized office space and making it co-living. There is a company in Canada that is doing this really well. And they're using office space that is not working in the middle of downtown in certain big cities. And without even changing or updating the plumbing much, they just convert all the space outside and use all the plumbing for shared kitchen, shared bathrooms, shared all kind of college style. But it's quite nice. They're called Toboggan. You check them out. Incredible work.
Yeah. Well, I think that will continue to be a trend. Trying to repurpose these office buildings that are essentially obsolete. And you do have, if it works for residential, then it's going to be better, more yielding if you do this model, right? So assuming that the building can accommodate residential, then it makes a lot of sense to maximize your yield. You're already going to have to spend a lot of money, take a lot of risk. You might as well try to maximize your return and do the strategy that's going to maximize your yield.
100%.
Flexibility.
What I would add, Michael, and it's simple, is United States is very behind compared to other countries in the world doing co-living. Europe is
that was my next question.
Away.
I have a note, international. So
might.
I was going to ask you, where does the U.S. sit in this trend, and where are other countries? How's the rest of the world doing this, and what can we learn from that experience?
Great question. We are, I would say, in the lower 25%. We're just starting where other countries like in Switzerland, UK is really one of the leaders in this, London particularly. The way they do it in London is very interesting. They do large towers, but they use what we call micro studios. 12, 15, 25, 30 square foot. That is micro units, micro studios with a lot of shared convenience and amenities. But you have a private room with a private bathroom, a little bit of tiny kitchen, but everything is shared. And they have buildings with 700, 500, 1,000 units in London and the bigger Liverpool, these areas. The rest of Europe is very well advanced as well. Asia, Singapore, there are a couple of companies that had around 30,000 units on management. India, of course, has also really organized operators, owners, operators, developers, operators that have been working in this for a long time. And once you know for sure, understand your numbers, well, you get to take maybe more risk and focus more in community. So, your tenants and your residents will stay longer. So now they are they're already on the, okay, how we can make for people to stay longer, years and years and years. And they create community based on mutual interest. From softwares, I have a client that she wants to have a community of women over 50 in the south of France. Amazing, take my money. And there are many like that all over the world. When you use co-living.com/communities, you see different sort of communities going on worldwide. Latin America, for what we call digital nomads, Tahiti, Bali, they're fantastic houses, 10, 15, 20 people for digital nomads with luxury pool for like $500 a month.
Yeah. So we're a little behind, and we, Americans, we like our space. Everything's bigger and more. A lot of wasted space. I think I have 3 rooms in my house that, the one room that has that we use only for basically Christmas.
There you go.
So maybe I should rent it out to somebody else. So, and also, in some of these European cities, especially, and all over the world, like the cap rates that we think are low here, you're at much lower cap rates too. So the value of the property is much higher, and the incomes are, in some cases lower. So you need to figure out how to make sense of that as the owner. And so they probably had to make, the realities of the economics are that they had to do this, right? And so that makes a lot of sense. I guess if someone wanted to become they're really excited about this model and they want to do it, what would you recommend for someone who's just thinking of starting in this space? How do they get started? And how do they get started? How do they get started doing this?
Sure. Well, I will say try to learn everything that you can online, number one. Of course, go to my website, but that's later on. There are plenty of educators that are going through, and more importantly, know why you're doing it, right? Because I just want more money. Period. Is one way to do it, but you need to know why are you getting into thesis, because at the end, you're helping people, either in the workforce housing sector, in the student sector. Like, why are you doing this, and what is the decision? Because once you enter, it takes once you stabilize, you usually don't go away. So are you in or not? Is your income welcome? Then number 2 is understanding underwriting, how to understand the underwriting. And I offer free classes every Thursday afternoon how to do the underwriting and free calculators, all that, based on your location. Is very important also. And how, if you have an exit strategy, you want to stay long term, short term. Do you want to have an exit strategy? You want to sell to other co-livings, or do you want to put money into someone else that is doing it? So what is like your flavor? So I'm based on your flavor. Happy to provide guidance, but try to learn online as much as possible.
And I know that, like with Airbnb and certainly for landlords, there's a lot of tools out there where you can find out, hey, this is what rents are, and then Airbnb, this is what you can rent the rooms by, or this is what you can rent by the night, and this is the occupancy in the area. There's just a ton of data. I assume there's similar tools out there for co-living where someone can figure out, okay, this is what I can rent. This is all the other co-living properties in the area. This is the competition. This is what people are renting by the room. Or are you kind of out there on your own? How do, it sounds like there's technology for operations with the pad split and stuff, but what about for underwriting and for learning and doing your initial diligence?
There is technology for everything. And Michael, there is one reason that Zillow.com has a section now for rooms. No matter where you go, in every city, you go Zillow.com, my city, and then don't look for houses, don't look for apartments, don't look for townhomes, look for rooms. And when you in that area that you're looking, how much is a room here? You see what people are asking for rooms. Simple as that. You go Zillow.com, find the area that you're looking at, and when you start looking at the room, you say, okay, people are charging how much for a room? And it's a nationwide. I don't think there is a city or a town in the United States that doesn't have room rentals. But also I want to take one step back and take away the stigma. People, maybe the stigma of, if I live by the room, either you might have a background check or something like that, and it's nothing further from the truth. Many of my clients, let's say, that are like very, young professionals. Hey, I'm a doctor in biotechnology that are coming from Mexico. That doesn't mean that he's a bad person. It's just the economics don't work. But that doesn't mean that there is something bad or implicitly bad about people that live in a co-living space. I have a lot of education done in this regard, especially for new investors that think that because, hey, if I lease by the room, they're not the best clients. So they're actually quite fantastic clients, but very appreciative of finding a place that is well run, well managed, that the property owners care about their well-being and the property is well taken care of. They can stay for all the time that you want.
Yeah, and so if so selfishly as a multifamily person, and I've got these different properties and they all have multiple buildings, and so if I wanted to convert one of my buildings on a property, say 10, 12, 15 buildings on each one, maybe there's each building is usually 15 to 30 units, and so if I wanted to take that, a 24 unit building on one of my properties and convert it into co-living, what would be the steps? So it sounds like there's not a lot of capital improvements I have to do. I have to deal with the rooms. I'll have to have separate, locks. There's a central entrance. We have central kitchen, central living room. So that's just a shared amenity. And then there's the amenities on the property, which is also just a benefit to people. But it's really just the locking of the doors that are all individual. And then you have the pad split and the various platforms that can help. Or how would you want to do that if you're in the multifamily space?
Number one, think about that you're multifamily. For a co-living operation to be successful, the minimum amount of rooms that you need to have per unit is 3. 3, if the apartment has 3, if it has 2 bedrooms, it doesn't work. If it has 1-bedroom apartment, you cannot do co-living in a 1-bedroom apartment or a studio or a 2-bedroom. It has to be 3 plus. Okay. So make that the unit count is 3 plus or more. The building that you discussed is 3 and 4s, all 3 4s, because that's the maximum allowed in the state of Massachusetts. So know the area, the laws in your county. What is the maximum amount, and then how many rooms can I have? It's 3 or 4. And
that's the number of unrelated maximum occupants, right?
Correct. Yeah, don't get me started on that because it's me furious. There are other states that are just getting rid of that. I think Seattle, Washington, they just take away that. Colorado, I believe, they just and also Kansas took away the number of unrelated occupants. It's like maximum. So I have clients that have rooms with large properties with 10 people, and they're cashing like crazy. So it depends on your state particular laws. Massachusetts 3 more. So minimum 3. Yeah. So to do the underwriting, minimum 3, and 4 even the better. And of course, a minimum 1 bathroom, 2 prefer for either choice. Yeah. Number 1. All right.
So what would be is there a rule of thumb so far as, say I've got a 2-bedroom that I can rent out for, and it's more of a workforce housing. So I've got different properties in different places, but say I'm renting that out for $800 for 2 bedrooms. I'm renting out 3 bedrooms for $1,100 or something. Is there this is only going to work if I can get it 50% more by the room? Is there, so if I know that I can get $800 for 2 bedrooms, that means $400 per bed. If I can get $600 per bed, then it's going to work out. Or is there some rule of thumb that I should be thinking about just as a gut check, or someone should think about just to do quick math, so I don't have to spend all this time on a spreadsheet? I can just, this is worth looking into a little bit more.
Okay, great question. Again, it depends on the state by state, but the rule of thumb, I will say it's about $800 per room. $800 per room. In a basic service. Sure. Yeah. In the luxury service is 20 something, but basic service around $800 a month, which is $200 a week, which is about what BuzzFeed has.
And so then if it's $800 a room, then you probably were, you're at a $2,000 a month for 2-bedroom, right? So it's say 20% cheaper from the tenant's perspective, right? It's this is 20 or 30% cheaper than if I got a 2-bedroom and split it with someone or something like that, right?
Correct. And also important, Michael, and you took a really important point. Thank you for reminding me. The rent has to be, so what is the average price of a studio in your area? If a studio in your area is $1,000, it has to be cheaper than that. So what is the average studio? and then it has to be $300-$400 under what a studio would live.
Right.
For people to say, okay, I'm going to make the switch because I'm saving.
Yeah, I'm saving money and I'm taking a little bit of a sacrifice because I'm not getting full ownership of the common spaces anymore. But if I get enough of a discount, I'm willing to do that because either I have to, and I'm willing to take that, or it's worth it because the savings is worth it.
Correct. And then what do you do with the extra money? You pay your student loans, pay credit cards, save for a down payment in a house. You move forward financially. You're more comfortable than being brain constrained.
Yep.
Which happens a lot.
Okay. And then, so you know what? I just realized we're getting pretty close to the end of our time here. So one other question I'll ask you is, before we get to the kind of the final questions, would be, we talked a little bit about the different technologies that are involved or that you can use. Are there any other technologies in this space that new investors should be aware of, or just investors that are already in the space that maybe, should know about?
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. My friend Grant has a software called Living Smith, which is like the top tier for co-living software property management. There are other property managements that can be adequate for these, especially the background checks and leases. But the ones that are geared towards specifically co-living is livingsmith.com. And then Passplit is more like, I will say, like the platform that acts like Airbnb in that way, and then co-living.com for sure.
Okay, great. Well, that was awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and I'm really happy that we got to talk about, the co-living space, and I appreciate your insights and the knowledge within the real estate sector. If listeners wanted to get in touch with you or find out more about you, your company, or co-living generally, what's the best way to get in touch?
100% my website, co-livingcashflow.com. My email is Clara@co-livingcashflow.com. If you want to learn, really learn, every Tuesday at 1 p.m., well, not today, but in the next one, I run a free webinar, and I do property underwriting. I answer every question you might bring to the table every Tuesday, 1 p.m. on my link in my website, co-livingcashflow.com, and then join in the webinar every Tuesday.
Excellent. All right, great. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Deal Flow. Don't forget to give the podcast a follow on Apple Music and Spotify, and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. And of course, if you feel like someone else would get something out of this show, please go ahead and send it across to them. Feel free to comment below with regards to future guests you'd like to see, or get in touch if you think your knowledge and expertise would make for a great episode. Thanks again for me, and I'll see you next time on Deal Flow.
Thank you for listening to Deal Flow with me, Michael Poulio. We hope you gained valuable insights into private equity real estate and market trends. Stay tuned for more expert discussions and updates on the latest in commercial real estate and structured finance. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting platform. Join us next time for more high-level conversations that empower your investment decisions and your operating results.